Now, with all the excitement that's been generated by National Prune Week, sadly, another very special occasion has gone virtually unnoticed. But tonight, we try and make amends and bring forth into the light the fact that it is the 20th anniversary of Cosmopolitan magazine. And who better to mark the occasion of this glossy than my first guest? She's placed pen to paper for nearly every magazine you might find on your newsagent shelf, including Ms. Cosmo. She's here to take us down a double decade of memory. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the authoress, Germaine Greer. Well, it's great to see you because I've never interviewed you and I've respected and admired you from some considerable distance for some considerable time now.
We're still quite a long way apart.
Yeah, but this is as close as it gets on this show.
Because it's Prune Week.
It's because it's Prune Week and because it's 6:30, unfortunately. Now, 20 years we've got to cast our minds back. And if we go just a little bit further back to, I believe, 1969, that was when your book, The Female Eunuch, first appeared?
Well, just about. It was almost published by McGibbon and Key.
Right, so it's really 1970, I guess, then.
Well, really, yes. They printed 5,000 copies, bound 2,500, and it was out of print on the day of issue.
Fabulous. Now, huge success, and I guess we could say that got the ball rolling for the feminist movement in this country. That was certainly instrumental.
I wouldn't say that myself. I think that this situation existed and the book appeared and the women made the book rather than the book made the women.
Seized on the book. Now, but then 2 years later, or roughly 2 years later, the Cosmopolitan magazine itself appeared, which many people saw as kind of related, as another something that had grown out of this movement. Now, how did you feel about when you saw Cosmo appear? What did you think of the magazine initially?
Well, I was a bit spoilt because I knew about American Cosmo, and I knew about Helen Gurley Brown, and I knew it was only a matter of time because it was a very successful marketing ploy. So it didn't seem to me that we were knocking down the barriers and you know, achieving anything, really.
So you're saying marketing ploy, do you think it was as cynical as that it wasn't trying to sort of change things, it didn't have any impact?
No, it's business. And I think it still is business. It's basically marketing that makes Cosmo. I'm amazed that people have to pay for it, seeing as it's all a long series of ads.
It's got some beautiful adverts in it, though. They're all
the ads are the best thing in it.
Yeah.
It's like television in that respect, if you'll pardon my saying so.
Yeah. I'll pardon you. Do you not think the features themselves have had any sort of influence? Because they have. I mean, I think if you say cosmopolitan to people, they have an idea, no matter how vague, they think of it in some way. And the word has, it's come to mean things over and above just the magazine, I think.
The Cosmo girl, she was allowed to be a brunette. That was an enormous breakthrough. Before that, the only nice girls were blondes. But then the whole point about the Cosmo girl is she wasn't supposed to be terribly nice.
Yeah.
She was supposed to be a go-getter, and she was supposed to know what she wanted, which was sex, not babies. And Cosmo is part of that whole argument that says that sex is more interesting than babies.
Which I think possibly...
is false.
Well, having sampled both, I think they're very different things, aren't they? Let's put it that way.
But don't you think that, well, I would say, for example, that the babies are delicious, gorgeous, amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's a different experience altogether.
They're a G-spot all over.
And certainly, once again, in my opinion, it lasts a lot longer.
Exactly.
But
that's like food, which isn't in Cosmo either.
Yeah, they don't have that kind of thing.
They're hypnotised by the 15 seconds.
Well, the Cosmo woman, I guess, is meant to be going out and eating, isn't she?
Oh, indeed she is. And if she gives a party, she's supposed to not go near the cooker, so you get marinated olives and roll mops.
All that kind of thing.
And an instant blinding headache.
And toast toppers, those kind of easy things to make. Let's have a look. This was a feature that appeared in the very first issue, and I wonder what you think of this, whether or not you were surprised that they were quite as bold as this. This was an exercise article they put.
I can't remember.
It's on the monitor over there, if you look, you see, and this was for women to exercise in the office. This appeared in the very first issue. And now, you see, I guess times haven't changed that much, have they? Because you still see articles like this, don't you?
Well, the problem there, though, is that she kept her skirt down while performing those manoeuvres, even though she had pantyhose on.
Yeah.
The pantyhose can't have been as good then as that.
It wasn't, no, well, you maybe weren't allowed to show it. But the other thing that Cosmo was known as, certainly when the American one was launched and the British one initially, were male pin-ups. I guess it was a time for men to be treated as an object for the first time, a sexual object of lust, as opposed to just women. And your then ex-husband, you'd had this husband...
He's still my ex-husband.
Well, yeah, well, you never know.
Oh, no.
But there he is, Mr. Paul Dufour, yeah?
Dufour.
Dufour.
Yes, it all began with me saying "Avez-vous du feu?" which
But
is
how-
what
you were-
prostitutes say in France.
You were married to this man for an intensely short time,
And
weren't
I can tell you on my honour that he had a navel when I left him.
Well,
I really don't know what happened to it. He's turned into Adam. I think Adam must be the only man without a navel because he was not a woman born.
and missing a rib as well. Why did they drop that? Any idea why they were not the centrefolds popular?
Did you find that man attractive? I did find that man attractive, but he had a navel, as I pointed out. I guess women are just not, well, I think women are not into that kind of voyeurism.
Yeah.
Women like people who speak, talk, move, and have their being. And the other curious thing about the male pin-up is that if he's ready for action, you're not allowed to show him. So they're all obviously unready for action.
But you see, there you couldn't tell because the knee was strategically placed.
Well, I hate to say this, but you would have been able to tell.
Okay. It's National Prune Week, everyone. But now you're writing. You've written for Cosmo and many other magazines. I
Not
think you've
much
written
for Cosmo.
But bits and pieces.
Generally what happens is that Cosmo buy bits of mine and I whinge and carry on because I don't want to give them respectability.
You're not a fan of the magazine at all, then?
I actually disapprove of the magazine entirely. I disapprove of everything about it, just about. I think it really capitalizes on women's anxiety. The small ads, even now, are all about cosmetic surgery.
Isn't that true of most of the women's magazines available on the market, though?
Yes, it probably is, but I think Cosmo is nastier in a way because there's so much sexual anxiety in it. They're still preaching, you know, the simultaneous orgasm and great tips in bed. You got to look great, you got to smell great, and then you got to be able to do great stunts in bed, you know, ankles crossed behind your head, and that you should be entitled to some quid pro quo here. It doesn't seem to go down. Men are still adored by Cosmo. Which is
one of the reasons why I guess we all read it. Maybe it's being sold to men, not the women. One final thing, you're now writing for the new magazine launch, Richard England's The Oldie. Will that be similar stuff? You're not going to be searching for the G-spot there, surely. That would be...
But I never did search for the G-spot.
Not even personally?
No.
I apologise, that was a very rude thing to say.
Well, it depends what you mean, but I...
That's the problem, I don't know what I mean. That's the major problem with this show. Listen, it was a great pleasure having you on, and that's
I'm leaving already?
Well, you can stay around if you want. It's Prune Week.
No, I can't. Seeing as it's Prune Week, I gotta go.
Germaine, it's a pleasure having you on. Germaine Greer, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. That was good. Marvellous fun, thank you. Now, at this point of the programme, I was going to give I was going to share with you my own reflections on the feminist struggle this last 20 years, but to be honest, back in 1972, my main concern was whether the Hotspur was giving away another free rocket cap bomber.